Okay, so yes, right now we are back, and I have a special guest right now because it's nice to be doing this interview because I usually have young rappers in the building and they're telling me about the new wave and all this thing, and right now I have someone who has a bit of history to him, a little, OG to me, if I might say. For sure, right now we have 40 Turf and Papa Corleone. Thank you for coming through, and man's popping the buck and everything. Geez, okay.
You gotta tell him what bottle that is, man. It's not no average bottle.
Tell him.
Got that Bel Air Gold, man.
Okay.
That good shit, man.
And
champagne only,
This
man.
is gonna be a good one because he's gonna be able to actually educate me about the Toronto rap scene on this one. So for sure, I'm happy to get into this. So before we get into exactly to your music, I think when I listen to it, it's very like personal. You talk about how you grew up in your life. So just tell me like how you grew up and what type of kid were you?
Well, Jane Finch, I was the bad guy. I was the bad kid. Well, you know what I mean? What I mean by the bad guy, like I was doing things that the kids my age weren't doing, like, you know what I mean? Stealing bikes, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Skipping school, you know what I mean? Selling drugs like 11, 12. So, you know what I mean? In that aspect, to the outside, I was the bad guy, but to me, I was the good guy. You know
But how did you get into that? Like all the family or something to put you onto that?
No.
Well,
just seeing things like my oldest brother, like, when I grew up, I seen him, hanging out, selling drugs. And, just the fast money, seeing him just do that kind of was like, my first kind of like introduction to that type of stuff. But how to get into it is just basically I wanted to do it.
Okay. So the music now, how did you get into doing that?
The music was more like an expression for me, like, you know what I mean? Therapeutic. I used to do the music because it was the only way for me to kind of express myself. And when I used to rap, a lot of people used to like it. So it's like I would walk outside and people would be like, rap for me all the time. And it's like, eventually I just started rapping more because I liked it. I liked the feeling it gave me the confidence,
I like you. When I listen to you, I get like a sense of like who you are, where you're coming from, and it's like I like the old school, the hard delivery. When it reminds me of like Pap and the old 50, and like I listen to you, I'm like I like that. So okay, so who were you listening to though when you were younger?
I was listening to mostly Tupac, right? Because that was my guy, Tupac.
And how do you? No, Microphone Fiend, was that the first mixtape?
No, that wasn't my first mixtape. That was actually my first solo mixtape. The first mixtape that I was actually on was a mixtape called the Backwoods mixtape. We released that in 2004. It was just like a big Jane Finch mixtape, you know what I mean? It was very big, like, you know what I mean? It was just word of mouth. There was no social media back then. There was no Instagram, Facebook. It was just, you had to know what was going on in the neighborhood. You had to be somewhat a part of the neighborhood.
You have to be
to be in depth to know what was really going on, So the Backwoods mixtape was the first mixtape I was featured on. I was actually featured on that when I was in jail. When I was like 14, 15, I was in jail. So that came out when I was young. And that was the first mixtape that I was featured on, and it was a Jane Finch like classic. If you ask anybody about the Backwoods mixtape, ask them about the Southside Jane Finch Lane, they'll tell you about the Backwoods mixtape.
Okay.
First time.
And you say, there was no social media, so like talking about like the promotion, because you're like a CD baby, like how did you actually promote your tracks back then?
It was just word of mouth, like, you know what I mean? If people heard about you, they're like, you know what I mean? If you were hot in the neighborhood, people would talk about you, like, yo, you never heard so-and-so's new song, or, you know what I mean? So it was basically what people heard about you. If someone heard something and, you know what I mean?
Okay.
It was like, okay, that's what people more went off of, like word of mouth.
Yeah. So do you feel like artists then were pushing their tracks a lot harder now? I mean then, because like now you can just like send it, yo, go listen to this blog and this and send it. Like,
yeah. Back then it was, like I said, back then I don't even think pushing it harder, but I think back then people were more actually interested in the actual art form of the music, right? Because if someone heard something hot, they would be more interested in it. Like, yo, I want to hear that. Like, who's that guy? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
and it was like word of mouth, like.
Okay, so yeah, so now tell me about Cold Hearts, that release. So can I listen to that track? You know, it seemed very like personal. You had a storyline in that, you know. So tell me about that track, what it's about, and like how you wrote that.
The way that song came about, it was, to be honest with you, I heard the beat. You know what I mean? I just heard the beat and I just started writing how I felt, like, you know, just going based off of, you know, past experiences, things that I've seen, things that I've, you know what I mean, experienced in my life. And it was just Cold Hearts is just like, it's just that this world is just cold, so you just gotta have a cold heart, man. It's just, I mean, for me, it was like more like of all the things that I've been through kind of made me have a cold heart. You know what I mean? So it's like Cold Heart's Cold is like more of it's a story about just growing up and seeing things and what you experience, and because of those things, it kind of makes you numb to what's going on around you, so you end up having a cold heart, you know?
Yeah, okay. All right. And tell me about, like, around what year was it when you started to take rap, like, seriously?
I'll probably say around the same time, 2003, 2004. Like, you know, like 2003, because that's when the Backwoods mixtape came out. So I was on it, and I, like, kind of, like, from there, it's like, you know, I want to do this.
Okay, 2004, what was I like? 2003. I think I was in daycare them times.
Yeah, man,
so.
2003.
Okay.
Yeah, 2003, man, was... In 2003, I was already full-fledged out in the streets. So, you know what I mean? I was already off the porch. I was already doing things.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I mean?
So what's the difference, like, then and now in the whole rap game? Like, what do you feel is, well, it's changed, like, a lot?
Like, now, like, people, like, honestly, to be real with you, back then, the music was more, like, I think the people would actually appreciate what you were saying a little bit more. Now it's like, whether the beat, people more care about the beat. People more care about that type of stuff than the actual lyrics or the actual words of the song. So I think now with the way it's just ABC. Like, it's more like, you know, they want to hear about, you know, people using drugs like Molly, lean. You know, they want to hear about people popping Percocets and Xannies, and, you know, back then if you were to say you were using Percocets or any type of drug in your song, you were called a drug addict. But now it's cool to be a drug addict, you know? It's okay to do drugs now. It's okay to, you know, take all of these drugs, which are, like, you know, lean is, like, it's a drug. It's oxycodone. It's actually a drug. It's not, like, Molly is a drug. Like, all these things are drugs. So, you know, you got guys like Future and these guys saying Molly, Percocets and stuff in songs, and then kids think it's okay to do it, you know? Yeah. So, it's kind of like the way music is going. Like, back then you never heard Tupac talking about doing cocaine, sniffing lines.
That's true, yeah,
right?
yeah.
But now you got guys talking about doing lines, cocaine, popping Molly's, Percocets, and everybody says it's a hit song, right? So kind of difference in the thought process, I guess, in the music. The artists think differently. It's a different time, right?
And that's one thing I think. When people listen to Papa Corleone, I think when they see, like, it's real, there's real substance behind the music and what you're saying. It's real. It's like your story. It's not like something you're just going on with the wave and say, let me rap about this. And I want to bring this up because there was an interview you did a while ago with Toronto rappers. Shout out Toronto rappers, and you said something in there, and I like this, and I want to read it. You said, people be out here talking about they sell drugs, they rapping about guns and gangster life, but that's nothing to glorify. When someone that doesn't live it glorifies it, that's a problem. You said that in that interview with Toronto rappers.
Yeah, that was in 2011.
11?
Yeah,
I like that.
Before I got arrested too.
Okay, I like that because, like, that's real. A lot of rappers feel like, you know, if they talk about this and it's not what they live, maybe that's what will put them on or something. If you know.
Yeah.
What's your take on that when you hear rappers talking about, oh, I'm gonna do this and I was up with the bando, and you know that's not them? Like,
like a minute? Give me a minute. All right, like the bando and all that.
Yeah, and that, you know, that's not them. As someone like said, would you be like, I don't even want to listen to this already because you know it's not true, or like, what's your take on that?
Yeah, like, you know, for me, I would like, it's personal with me with the music because. Not to glorify anything, but I actually do the things that I talk about. You know what I mean? Right? Like, I talk about selling drugs. I used to sell drugs, you know what I'm saying? I don't do it anymore, but you know what I mean? I was selling drugs, you know what I mean? I talk about, gangster lifestyle, and, a lot of rappers talk about shooting people and they ain't never shot nobody in their life. You know what I mean? They talk about all of these things and they glorify it, and it shouldn't be glorified because at the end of the day, I was affected by like actually living what I rap about. It affected me because I got arrested in 2011, right? I got arrested. The police arrested me, accused me of having a firearm. But that case is in appeal, and I should be, acquitted sooner or later. But like I said, when you talk about these things and the police actually believe or that you're actually doing it, that like you're actually, there's only one option for you. You're gonna go to jail. You know what I mean? There's no, you know what I mean? So that's why I say, like, for guys that don't rap about it and they glorify it, it's offensive because, like, there's actually people that don't want to live their life, but they're kind of forced to. And because they're forced to, they talk about things in their music like me. Like, I talk about, being charged for guns and all types of crimes because that's the fact. These are the truth. That's the truth. You know what I mean? But when someone that doesn't live it talks about it and makes it seem like it's cool, it's not, because actually reality is that's not something to glorify. You're not supposed to glorify it. Like, even if I talk about it in my music, I'm not trying to glorify it. I'm just basically painting a picture with words, being an artist, right? I'm just painting a picture. But some people that don't live it, they glorify it and think it's cool. And that's when it becomes like a real issue. Right?
And if they probably even were to step in your shoes and try and live it, they probably couldn't even stomach it.
Yeah, you couldn't. Right? You couldn't do it. You probably, not to say that they couldn't do it. I don't know how next man would react in a situation, but for me, it's like, you know what I mean? I look at it like, if you're gonna talk about it, just actually be about it. If you just want to be a good entertainer, just be an entertainer and just entertain the crowd. You know what I mean? After you get off the stage, just tell them, hey, I was just an entertainer and none of that stuff was real. Right?
Okay. But so you got arrested, and so once you come out, like, what's the mindset there? Like, does that change you in any way? And it's okay, it's strictly music now. Like, what is your process now? Or how you're thinking now?
Like, prison, it depends on the person, right? Because prison affects each person differently, right?
For sure.
For me, it was more like just trying to stay out, you know what I mean?
Okay.
I mean, just like, what I mean by stay out is like, instead of me going back to Jane and Finch and doing the things that got me arrested and got me caught up, I made a decision to say, you know what, let me not go there. Let me make a change. And the change was, first of all, changing my surroundings, because a lot of times people don't realize it's the surroundings that you are in that kind of can dictate whether or not you go the right way or the wrong way. So I said, you know what, I had enough of this. I don't want to be told what to do. I don't want a guy telling me to take my clothes off and bend over. You know what I mean? Let me see it. Let me spread them. I was tired of that. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm like, I ain't doing that no more. So I made certain changes to say, you know what, let me surround myself with people that are more focus driven, more people that they have goals, they want to do something with themselves, not just hang out in the projects and smoke weed and have a gun on their waist, and then you're only going to go so far doing that.
Okay.
Right? So I made a choice to leave that environment, and by leaving that environment, I've been able to stay out of trouble, been able to, get myself back on the right track,
And people definitely use you as a prime example, because, it sucks. A lot of people hate when they see someone with such talent and they're like, the star of the block, and they get arrested, and then if they come out and they don't learn, you want them to, because you want them to keep making music, you want them to get rich and, be that star. All
well,
right.
I think that the reason why that happens is because when people are star of the blocks, they tend to forget how to separate them being a star of the neighborhood and their neighborhood's problems, right? Because you come from my neighborhood, a lot of rappers feel like, okay, well, I'm from this neighborhood, so I have to represent for my block. But in actuality, when you die, those same guys that you were repping for are probably not even going to do anything about your death. And if they do, so be it. They're probably going to put up a GoFundMe account for you. You know what I mean? And that's going to be the end of you. So a lot of guys in the rap game, they don't know how to separate. Like, if their block doesn't like another block, that doesn't mean you as an artist has to not like that block. You can separate yourself and say, yeah, I'm from Jane and Finch, but that's not my problem. I'm an artist and I'm doing what artists is doing. That's painting pictures with words. I'm making music. But a lot of guys don't know how to separate being from their neighborhood and being an artist, because at the end of the day, yes, you represent a neighborhood, you come from a community, but not every problem in your community, it should be the artist's problem, not because you're the face of the community. So a lot of guys, they don't know how to separate that. And because of that, that's why you see the way it is in Toronto, because cats are not separating themselves from their neighborhoods, right?
Straight. See, that's why I was happy to do this. That's straight.
Come on,
See,
man.
we need to take this in and learn.
I told you.
Jeez.
Numbers.
Okay. All right. And tell me about the whole contest you won in 2011, the Jane Street. They had like a rap contest you did. You won. I watched it, but when you went on, you had the place jumping. You did the In My Hood remix. Tell me about that. What was that?
That was big. Because honestly, I wasn't even gonna do the rap contest. But everybody's like, yo, you gotta do it. You gotta represent for Jane and Finch. You gotta represent the hood. You gotta represent the bottom lane. Represent your block. And I had to, I was kind of pressured into it. But I'm happy I did it, because like the song Papa's Gonna Die Tonight, all of those songs are based off of real experiences, you know what I mean? It's not that's why you seen the crowd acting like that, because they yo, he really talking that real, he really talking that shit. Like when I'm saying, yo, in the streets of Jane and Finch, I keep hearing people saying Papa's supposed to die tonight. Niggas done put their head out and they acting like the shit's okay. So I'm gonna ride tonight. We rolling, Hootie stolen, the Mossberg's loaded. Somebody's gonna die tonight. Straight loking, backwoods smoking. I'm locked and loaded. Somebody gonna die tonight.
Tell them about the mixtape, man. You're singing the trap, but where can we find that mixtape? That Piff.
Nah, man. That mixtape ain't even out, man. Microphone Fiend Vol.1, you can't even get that. That was just a classic. If it's like a Reasonable Doubt Jay-Z, when it came out, if you got it, you got it. If you didn't, you didn't. But I could re-release it. I could re-put it out, you know what I mean?
Good.
But yeah, that mixtape was the first release, Microphone Fiend, my first solo release. And then after Microphone Fiend, I did the Memory Lane on the Dat Piff. The same one that you downloaded. Yeah, so after, that was the second. That was my actual album, Memory Lane, because that's all original production, right?
Okay. But was that the first time you ever did a contest or your first performance?
Yeah, that was my first. People? That was my first. Not my first performance, but my first actual. Let me enter a contest. Let me enter a contest to kind of display my talents.
And I like it because after you won it, you're like, I don't even need the money, but I'll take it.
Honestly, to be real, because a lot of cats, they rap to get money out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they rap because they want something out of it. I just rap because I love doing music. I actually thought, sorry, let me correct myself. I don't rap. I paint pictures with words because I love expressing myself. I'm an artist. You know what I mean? I love to express myself. It's therapeutic. If I'm going through some stuff and, you know what I mean, I don't want to lose my mind in the reality world, I'll lose my mind on a song. And I'll say, you know what, let me do some Eminem, Slim Shady shit. Let me kill my wife and kids on the song instead of actually doing it in real life, you know?
Okay.
So so I take my anger out on the music, you know what I mean? So if I feel like I want to hurt somebody, let me hurt them in the music, you know? Let me hurt them in a song. It's not going to hurt really anybody because it's just expressing, you know? So, with that being said, that's where, a lot of cats, they don't know how to separate. So that's why with that 2011 rap contest, it was big, because at that time I was really going through a lot of stuff in my personal life. So when I made Papa's Gonna Die Tonight was actually a real song. It wasn't meant to be that was actually a real experience. I'm basing it off of real events. You know?
Okay. All right. So how do you feel about, I don't know if you heard about the safety minister coming to Jane and Finch wearing the bulletproof vest. How do you feel about that? What's your take on that?
He should have wears bulletproof vests. I would too. I used to wear bulletproof vests every day in Jane and Finch.
Yeah? A lot of people just kind of seem like, oh, that's outrage, or it's kind of rude, or...
How is it rude when people are walking around with guns and shooting people? I lived in Jane and Finch, and when I walk out of my house, but not every day, but when it's on, you got to wear a bulletproof vest. That's a part of the dress code. So for someone that doesn't live there, that heard stories about it, why wouldn't they wear a bulletproof vest?
True. Okay.
They got to go home to the family at the end of the day. Why wouldn't you?
Exactly. Okay.